Not to do any evil, to cultivate good, to purify one's mind. Come on, can you say it? How are you? Good morning. They're pretty nervous today, these guys. Good morning. There he goes. How are you? How are you? You said it. You say it again. How are you? So these talking magpies, these are the second set of magpies that the monks have. The first set was stolen in the middle of the night. Someone came along and stole the talking magpies that the school children had taught to say good morning and how are you. So having heard about this, I came over here and started teaching these guys, and they can say it now, but they're a little shy today. How are you? Good morning. There he goes. How are you? Good morning. How are you? I think they're spooked by the construction noise. I'll come back here again later when there's no construction noise. What are you looking at? What are you looking at? Just coming back to the neighborhood pagoda for a minute to get some thinking done for a second. Say a few words before moving on. Looks like it's a baby pigeon. Fell out of the nest and died. Fell from up there. Anyway, I'm gonna move him. I don't want him to sit here baking in the sun. Today's episode is going to be strolling about in my neighborhood and maybe going across the Mekong River just to get some fresh air. I was out late last night partying, which I don't party that much normally, but because of Halloween I did. So it's going to be lying low day. Looks better without the hat though, doesn't it? By the way, this is a special hat from the Roswell's Country Station, KMOU, Roswell, New Mexico. I won 3rd place in songwriting, the song contest in 2018 for my song Bad Guys by Dawn Marshall. That's the music name I have. I'll put a link in the description. You can listen to the song. It won 3rd place, got me this lovely hat. So that's my connection with Roswell. Although my friend Rich and we did go to the UFO museum once and saw I'll see if I can find it, a mock-up of the aliens that they purportedly found, and it was like a diorama with some aliens mocked up. So I got a question from the previous video, and that's what I'm doing is I'm asking anyone who views these to send in questions, and I can answer them as best I can. The question from the last video was sent in by Rick, and his question was, why did you move out to Cambodia? Or roughly, I'm paraphrasing. It's basically, if I had to boil it down, it would come down to quality of life, freedom, quality of life per dollar spent, and freedom. So those are large subjects. Quality of life per dollar spent, well, I can break it down with some examples. I can pay the rent with just my royalties from audiobooks and voiceover jobs, and my goal is to be able to pay my rent, at least pay my rent with royalties. Now compare that to the States, where I was always living in small, cooped up, cramped up apartments because of the cost. New York, San Francisco. I lived in a residential hotel. New Mexico, when I was making Lost in New Mexico, my second feature. Living in a sort of an upstairs loft of a multimedia company, very non-traditional environment. Had a room in a house in Santa Fe, which was very cooped up, and I was subletting it from this older lady who was kind of bitchy, and I just got tired of that. At some points I was living in between places. Rents are expensive in the States. The other reason I came out here, so there's overhead, okay? Lower overhead environment. Freedom. What do I mean by freedom? Well, there aren't as many rules and regulations out here. It depends which country you're in, of course. Cambodia is somewhat laissez-faire in terms of regulations, as long as you don't go past a certain line. That's how it is in the region, basically. In Cambodia, if you're criticizing openly the prime minister or the king, perhaps, but especially the prime minister, you could end up in trouble. So there's an authoritarian. It's like a hybrid authoritarian democracy. It's a flavor of democracy, but largely, if you don't go poking with sharp sticks, you get left alone and can enjoy a lot of freedom. You can easily go across the river and look at some nature for 25 cents for the ferry ride. That's what it'll cost. You can open a business fairly easily. There are very few obstacles. You have to register the business, but it's very easy. There aren't so many bureaucratic obstacles. A lot of young people come here to do that, to practice starting up a business, because the environment here is easier. The overhead is lower, so you can take more risks. You can open up a club that caters just to techno music or something and try it for a while. It might not succeed, but at least you didn't spend too much money, hopefully. So freedom, and what I also mean a general sense of freedom. At least here, and I'm not talking about China where there's a big social credit thing happening and you're observed very, very closely. You are not really monitored, so I have nothing to hide. I have a clean background. I just did the FBI check when I was back in the States. Of course, it's clean. But I don't like having to check in with authorities all the time, and I don't like having to be observed all the time. So there is a feeling of freedom as long as you're not criticizing the government. And in Thailand, when I was living and working there, it was similar, but not the prime minister. It was the royal family, especially the king, especially the old king, the previous king. So these things are off limits. You can't criticize. But if you walk, if you don't act in a controversial way and you're pretty reasonable, then there's a tremendous amount of freedom. What else? I like the aesthetics. I mean, look at these, as we looked at before, I like the look. I like the colors. It's, to my eye, it's somewhat sort of psychedelic, alternative, certainly alternative to what I grew up with. And it makes me feel sort of mentally expanded. Is it still rolling? I like Buddhism. I guess you could say I'm a hybrid Christian Buddhist. It's different where Vietnam especially is not the same type of Buddhist practice that you find in Cambodia, Thailand, and Myanmar, Burma. I worked in Burma for a year with the U.S. Embassy, the American Center.
What were the other reasons? Well, I left New Mexico in 2004. I left the States, drove from New Mexico to San Francisco. Is this straight? Not really. Because I wanted to build up my teaching credentials. And because it was a grind. The indie film world was a grind. Like years spent developing a project, shooting a project, producing it, distributing it. You know, Book Wars, before that Charlie's Box, and then Lost in New Mexico, my second feat. These are grueling, tedious projects, and I got the sense that, wow, I might not be able to depend upon long movie making, at least long form movie making, for a living. So what else can I do? And I was doing some voiceover, which I still do. These things take a while to build up. But what else can I do as a quote-unquote career? And so I decided, well, a friend of mine suggested go to Vietnam to start teaching, particularly teaching English. And that's where I flew to initially. I flew from San Francisco to Hanoi, one way, and just started looking for jobs. And I didn't have any experience. I had a bit of teaching experience. I had taught digital media at Parsons New School, so I had a bit of teaching experience, but I built up more teaching experience as I worked my way down from Hanoi to Ho Chi Minh City, making contacts. And that's when I decided to take a teacher training in Bangkok, a TEFL training. So I took the bus from Ho Chi Minh City to Bangkok, and if you look at the map, you know, Phnom Penh, where I am now, is somewhat equidistant between those two. It's a long bus ride. If you go from Ho Chi Minh to Bangkok, that's like a 20-hour bus ride. So they stop. And we stopped in Phnom Penh. I'd never been here before. I'd been to Siem Reap to see Angkor Wat. And it was really, the energy, you could feel it crackling, you could feel it developing. You could actually feel it developing. And it was a really cool energy, a kind of Wild Westish energy. This was in 2005. They didn't even have ATMs here then. And I think they had one traffic light. And now, of course, you know, it's totally modernized. I mean, so I've been in the region for more than 15 years, not all in Cambodia, some in Thailand, some in Vietnam, some in Myanmar. But we stopped in Phnom Penh on that bus ride to Bangkok to do the teacher training. And I kept delaying my onward progression to Bangkok until the day before the course was about to begin, because I really liked it here. So I did go. I finally went to Bangkok, did the teacher training, and while I was there, I reflected on my stay here and said, you know, I can go back to Phnom Penh and do teaching and media making. So I put together a plan. I suspected I could do this, so I did come back here, and I was able to do media productions for NGOs and some of my own videos while teaching. So in the States, it was more like independent production work, try to find production gigs to fill in, like PA work or background work, because I am in the Screen Actors Guild. I'm on hiatus, but I'm still technically part of the guild. So that's in a nutshell why I came here. And so I decided to stay. I didn't plan on staying here this long, but number one, the longer you stay, the easier it is to stay. You learn the language, you become accustomed to it, the way of life, the food, the language, all that. Number two, it's expensive to start up again in the States from scratch. You know, if you don't have an apartment or a vehicle already, and you go back, you need like $20,000. If you have no friends well, I have friends, but I don't have a family house to go back to. And how long can you rely upon friends you can't really, maybe a week. So, I don't know, 2 weeks, but I have gone back to the States periodically with my savings, rented, for example, in Santa Monica, I rented a couch in a living room, $800 a month. That was the going rate. I mean, that's a room in LA, $800, $900, just for a room. I think I saw one for 700 in Koreatown. But I would go back, put out my CVs, make my calls, make my contacts, try to get things happening, and then after a month, after 2 months, if nothing concrete materialized and my money was always going down, it became evident that it was smarter for me to return here on my return ticket and keep going, because I can still make media, I can still live life here. So let's say hypothetically I had a trust fund and we had a family ranch. Yeah, I might go back. I'd go back and it would be easier to start up again. I don't have those things. So in this day and age, especially, this is the end of October, tomorrow's Halloween, 2022. There's supposed to be a recession coming in 6 to 9 months, some kind of economic event. This region will be less impacted by it than Europe or the United States. Supply chains are not as extended, production is localized, and the ASEAN APAC region in general is becoming a pole of power, economic power in the region. My plan was before, and still is, to go to Vietnam. If I'm going to stay in the region longer, it's going to be Vietnam, because it's a very strong economy, a real strong contender as an alternative to China for manufacturing. It's probably not going to be tremendously impacted by the economic event in whatever form that will take. Depends what wealth, what assets you have. If you don't have assets, financial assets, you need to keep your overhead low. I mean, that's an axiom of financial management. If your overhead is high and you're not raking in a lot of money, then you're going to chew through that money and your quality of life will be diminished. It's simple. It's an equation. I like teaching. I got a lot of experience out here from having come out here. I must have gotten between 3,000 and 5,000 hours of classroom contact experience teaching English, academic writing, design, art history, video production, of course, motion graphics, animation, research methodology, presentation skills. It really helped me develop. Also, I got all that experience. Could I have gotten that in the States too? Yes. It's harder to get your credential there. It's more hoops to jump through. And for some reason, it's weird. When in Florida and also in New Mexico, I constantly was reaching out to the departments of education to get my educator's license. And it was slow and cumbersome and non-responsive, and it wasn't clicking. It's just not. I have an Illinois substitute teacher's license, and I have a bachelor's in film and TV and a master's in international development studies. But in terms of teaching credentialing, that's what I had. That's it. So I made efforts to get the credential, but it wasn't clicking. It was such a laborious bureaucratic process. By the time I got halfway through it, I said, my God, do I want to dedicate myself to the public schools in America? And the answer is no, because they don't appear to respect teachers. They certainly respect teachers out here. There's not that you want to be revered like a god, but you are in society, you're in a hierarchy. The teacher is respected. I've helped hundreds, if not thousands, of disadvantaged students out here. At least hundreds. I've changed their lives. And I'm not boasting. I'm with the skill sets I've been able to share. So that might have gone unrecognized or been without impact in the States. I like America. It's so, how can you say? overhead is higher there. There's a lot more regulation, and there's a lot more hoops to jump through. But that's why I came out here. So I didn't come out here initially with the plan of staying 15 years or whatever. But I remember in 2006, 2007, before I started my master's degree at Royal University, Phnom Penh, I remember being here in Phnom Penh. I lived across the park in this street 258. Maybe I'll go stop by there in a minute. I remember thinking to myself, wow, this is such a cool place. I could stay here a long time. And I don't know if my mind at that point shot something out to the universe that made that happen. But in the end, I've been here a long time. Very busy. Very, very busy. As busy, at least, as when I was in New York. I like visiting New York. I don't really like the crush of concrete anymore. I lived there about 10 years. I think that was enough. According to Ed Koch, that makes me a New Yorker anyway. So, being middle-aged now, an environment like this, perhaps a smaller town, it could be a smaller town in America, but yeah, sure, it could be a small town in America. But the startup costs, going back and starting from scratch without a nice chunk of money in place, and is just, it's possible. And I do have a plan to do that in assembly. And part of it involves studying for a master's degree in the States, which I've been accepted into that program already. But putting those pieces together is still tricky. Still need to generate a lot of money to pay for your housing, and so for now this is more manageable. Overhead is lower, and I can live healthy here too, actually. I think the food is generally mostly organic, just by default. I exercise every day. I feel healthy, and I guess when things are going okay, at least okay to good, then you just keep going with that. I hope that answers the question, Rick. Anyone else have any questions? If you're out there, let me know, and I'll put them in the comments, and I'll try to get to them. I'm going to go now. I'm going to go to the park and then cross the river. That's where we just were, up there, in the main pagoda. Skateboarders. I'm gonna walk up. I'm gonna walk up that way because that's where they have the pancake. The egg. I forget what it's called. It's like an egg crepe with miniature shrimp and vegetables. It's good. Actually, let's go this way. Okay, I might as well show you this monument in recognition of Vietnam. But here it is, the monument. I'll read the plaque. The Cambodia-Vietnam Friendship Monument was built as a testimonial of gratitude for and in memory of the sacrifice of Cambodian people in the cause of Vietnam's territorial unification, they called it, during the 60s and 70s, and the sacrifice of Vietnamese army and people in the liberation of Cambodian people from the genocidal regime of Democratic Kampuchea in the 70s and 80s. Democratic Kampuchea means Khmer Rouge. But I didn't know about this other part. The cause of Vietnam's territorial unification. Oh, the sacrifice of the Cambodian people in the cause of... Okay, so the Vietnam War, they call the Second Indochina conflict. In America, we call it the Vietnam War. This monument also recognizes the sacrifice, the death of many Cambodians in the Vietnam War. And that would be due to, well, not just U.S. activity in Cambodia, but Vietnamese activity in Cambodia, in all fairness. The U.S. pursued the North Vietnamese and Viet Cong into Cambodia and bombed not only the NVA and Viet Cong, but also the Khmer Rouge. So history, the narrative can be a bit one-sided, I've noticed. I've studied that component very extensively because of our movie Freedom Deal.
In cooperation with the armed forces of South Vietnam, attacks are being launched this week to clean out major enemy sanctuaries on the Cambodia-Vietnam border. Tonight, American and South Vietnamese units will attack the headquarters for the entire communist military operation in South Vietnam. This key control center has been occupied by the North Vietnamese and Viet Cong for 5 years in blatant violation of Cambodia's neutrality. This is not an invasion of Cambodia.
On a number of the nation's college campuses, most of the protests related to the U.S. involvement in Cambodia.
Freedom Deal was set during the U.S. incursion into Cambodia in 1970. The incursion by U.S. and ARVN, Army of South Vietnam forces, which in turn was that's what protesters in the U.S., students at Kent State, for instance, and Jackson State were protesting. They perceived it as an expansion of the U.S. war, and in fact it was a military operation to liquidate base areas inside Cambodia, verifiable base areas established by the North Vietnamese Army. They had to do that in order to withdraw from Vietnam. So for the U.S. to withdraw from Vietnam, they had to launch the incursion into Cambodia in order to liquidate those base areas, which were staging grounds and supply areas mainly, so that they could then leave. It was the U.S. ARVN incursion was actually considered to be the most successful operation of the Vietnam War, which itself was, so the Vietnam War was a mistake that was flawed, okay? But to get out of the mistake, they had to, if they had not liquidated those base areas, which were mainly, again, ammunition and food and weapons and supplies and so forth, they couldn't have left. They couldn't have left without much more severe and significant casualties. We're going to the egg pancake restaurant to get something to eat, and then I'm gonna probably go across the river, the Mekong River. Okay. Yes. Hey, Chubby. How you doing? Wow. In the evening, it really gets packed with people. Royal Palace is beyond those trees. We'll go there another time. Right now I gotta get the pancake. I'm starving. There's the lady who, she's disabled. I help her out frequently. I'm gonna give her 1,000 real in a minute. I give her money every time I see her, basically. Even when she doesn't ask, you know, I give her money. Yes. Here you go. Okay. Good luck. Some nang lo. Here it comes. I think this is it. Yeah, here it is. Oh my God. Thanks. Let's see what it looks like. Let's eat it. This is what I meant. This is the inside is like, well, there's bean sprouts, right? Little pieces of pork. It's like a pork, not sausage, it's just ground up. And here, miniature little shrimp. It's nice. These are kind of like a little, they give it a little crunchy, seafoody texture to the whole shebang. So this is like an egg omelette-y, but like a very thin omelet wrapped around all this. I have to find the name. I forget what the name is. Good with some of this sauce too. Although I prefer it with vegetables. Also good is pickled garlic. Pickled garlic. This. Hello? Hey. Some. How ta is out tomorrow? Ban Chao. Oh, it's a Mahok, Vietnam. Ban Chao. Yeah, this is a Vietnamese origin. So, even though it's from Cambodia, and now let's try. I love it. 7,000 real. Slightly less than $2. If you're wondering why my face is shiny or my nose is white, it's sunblock. So I'll come here, I'll usually go to the park, run a few laps, and then come here and have a pancake. Not bad. Chew with my mouth closed, be polite. after this. See, it's 4 o'clock already. Could go across the river still. It would just be a trip there and back, basically. And then stroll up the riverside. But maybe I'll do the river trip another time. Let's walk down. We'll walk down to the ferry and see how we feel. And if we want to cross, we'll cross. Won't we? Won't we? Okay. Catch you in a bit. Apanya ha? Kyom Pyu Tomada.
Apanya ha? Kyom Pyu Tomada. Cô phải ai lùi rồi.
Little freshwater clams, right?
Nè, đó nè. Nè, bác Khoa. Nó không buồn. Rồi, đặt lên nha ơn. Đã bao tầm bố ấy.
Here's the Num Kroit. I have no clue what's in it. I'm gonna try it now. And it's served in like a white liquid. So I don't know what's in it there. See that? I don't know if it's, I don't know. Let's see. It's like a vegetable dumpling. Hard. Wow! You burn your mouth on that thing. A little hot for me. Try eating it some more. Finish it. Not bad. It's like a okay, bye-bye. It's like a it's got like bits of like scallion inside, but also the milky thing that it came in was sweet. So it's like a dumpling that's all over the place. Pretty cool old tree. Look at the shrine down below it. With the elders. Walking towards the Royal Palace area. The river is over there, but we can't get through there. We have to go around this stuff. Coconut Man. Coconut is very healthy, full of vitamins. I think it's like 3,000, I'm not sure. Yeah, it's 3,000 by pound, right?